Yeah, you were talking about how alcohol is no longer federally regulated,
Right.
but marijuana is still a controlled dangerous substance.
It's still Schedule 1, which Schedule 1 means it has no medicinal value, yet we have 37 states that have medical marijuana.
So what's the interplay between federal and states when it comes to marijuana?
So
right?
most of those laws federally that ban the sale or possession of marijuana still are in effect. What Congress has actually done since 2014, it's an interesting thing. It's a little bit of a law nerd, but there's an amendment that has been on every budget bill since 2014. We have to renew it every year. But all it says is the Justice Department cannot spend any money enforcing laws in states where there is medical marijuana. Now, recreational marijuana, the way this amendment works, the DEA could still go arrest a dispensary owner for for recreational marijuana. So it's really interesting because it's really about the money being spent, not the repeal of the laws. There was a guy that actually got arrested before this amendment existed, owned a dispensary and was spending years in jail, and went to the court and said, hey, y'all can't hold me anymore because you can't spend money on me. He wasn't asking to get his conviction overturned. He just said, you got to let me out because you're spending money on me. You're not supposed to.
And how was that?
How did that work out? He got out.
Wow.
No, but the court actually said, hey, we agree. They can't spend money on you. They got to let you out. But the way this thing is set up, it's every year they got to renew it. So if next year the Congress decides to not renew this amendment through the spending bill, if you're still within that statute of limitations, the DEA could potentially come and arrest a bunch of people that are in these recreational states.
Yeah.
Or even in the medical states.
So it's really the laws are still on the books on the federal side, but they're really not enforcing it.
Well, they took away all their budget to enforce it, and if you have no money to enforce it, then you can't do anything about it.
Is that a executory function? Is that from the executive branch?
It's actually from the legislative branch because they are the ones that pass the budget.
Interesting.
The president presents his budget, and then the legislature actually gets to pick it apart and change it if they want to. That's the same thing happens here at the state level.
What do you think should happen? You think that they should just return all the rights to the particular state and let the states decide?
I mean, it's how we decided to do it with that other drug, alcohol. People forget it's a drug, but that is one of the other ones. And I mean, it makes sense to me. We already have a structure out there in place for how that should work.
Okay. And another hot topic on when it comes to medical marijuana, recreational marijuana, is the interplay between that and gun ownership.
Oh, yeah,
right? You
hear all the time, man. You can't own a gun if you have, a medical marijuana card. So there's people that won't, especially down here in South Louisiana, right? We got a lot of hunters. They want to go shoot those ducks and all that stuff, shoot some deer, and worry about that little instant. So there's people that are on opioids, and they stay on them because they don't want to give up their gun ownership. But if you've seen a lot in the news lately, there's been a lot of challenges to different gun laws. And there's actually somebody in Mississippi who went and challenged that because he was probably a good old boy hunter. And the Fifth Circuit agreed with him and said, yes, you can't restrict somebody's gun rights because of their medical marijuana status. But you can have laws that just like we said with driving, you can't have a gun when you're inebriated. But there are already laws like that for alcohol as well in some states. So
okay, so look, a common thing that I would see is somebody had a gun. Well, there's always been a law that said you cannot have a gun in the presence of controlled dangerous substances.
And that's exactly what the case was for the man in Mississippi.
Okay.
He got busted and he had marijuana. He had marijuana and guns in the car.
Yeah, it's the reasoning for the law, I guess the custom behind the law was that the presence of a gun next to drugs means that you're a drug dealer.
Correct.
Right. And so that they wanted to prevent that type of behavior.
And they really want to stop the people that are selling drugs and are using guns, right? That's more of a safety concern for the public than just the drugs being out there.
All right, so I'm assuming Louisiana still has no possession of a firearm in the presence of a controlled dangerous substance on the books.
It's maybe on the books, but it's potentially unconstitutional.
That's interesting. I've had a few of those cases in my career.
Yeah, there's a case going through Florida right now. That's the 11th Circuit, and it hadn't made it, but it maybe ended up in the same place as following the 5th Circuit. So, we could end up somewhere where the Supreme Court weighs in on this and really tells us whether or not you can do any kind of gun control laws around marijuana.
Okay, can we get our tinfoil hat? Because I have a question.
Let's
follow-up
go.
question.
You know me, I love those.
All right, so this question has been asked of me at least 5 to 10 times. It says, if I get a medical marijuana card, that is just a reason for the government to come and take my guns. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, that's what people tell me all the time. That's what I
Okay,
said.
so it's not just me.
Oh, no, my good old boy hunters will ask me that all the time. And that's what I was saying is literally it just happened, but it was in the last couple of years that the man from Mississippi, at least for your clients here in Louisiana, they have a Fifth Circuit ruling that says you can't do that.
Yeah, and it's like you're going to be on some list, and they're going to come knock on everyone who has a list. They're going to knock on the door and come in there and take your guns.
You're probably on a list because you have to register with your state to be able to get that medical marijuana card. So you're on a list. I don't know who they're sharing it with.
But I don't even. I mean, the list, just having a medical marijuana card doesn't even kill your privileges to have a concealed carry permit.
Well, it can't anymore because of those rulings. I mean, there were states that had, that, or the federal government could have enforced it. They really weren't. I mean, I know people with medical marijuana cards, and it's not like the DEA or the ATF showed up at their house and said, give me your guns back.
Yeah. Well, isn't this just like another example of like the work that lawyers do and like having clients that are on the other side of the law kind of pushing back on the government?
I mean, that's anytime you see these cases that come up, it was usually, as one of my favorite law professors, old Cheney Joseph, said, they're usually the bad guys when we're reading these case law, right? They weren't good people. That's why they got busted. But their rights are our rights.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to protect. That's what you do every day. That's what I try to do every day.
Yeah, it's interesting. Benny always says it's defending the rights of the guilty that protect the rights of the innocent.
100%.
Yeah, and then you see a scary guy and you're like, well, what are they talking about, trying to protect this terrorist or whatever? And it's like, no, if there's not pushback there's nothing preventing them from going through your wife's panty drawer, right? And it's an extreme example on both sides, but it's true. It's like lawyers have to push back against the state.
Yeah, that's usually where it happens is, maybe the cops knew that is a bad dude and they were willing to do whatever it took to arrest that person.
Yeah. Well, look,